A highly trained martial arts student is sent to expose a drug lord, who turns out to be his sister's killer. Right after the completion of his training, a very skilled martial arts student is recruited by a top-secret spying agency, which wants the young boy to do their dirty work and expose a very influential drug lord by joining his special tournament program. But when the young man discovers that the drug lord's men were the reason behind his sister's suicide, he vows to avenge her by eliminating all the leeches, despite all the danger that lies around him. The film opens in a secluded Shaolin temple, situated in an elevated area. It is an institute that specializes in martial arts. 4 houses, all representing a specific color, are grouped in a training ground, where the temple's best student, Lee, is seen sparring and effortlessly winning a match from his opponent. His monk teacher takes him aside to deliver news, but before that, he makes sure the temple's teachings and principles are carved to Lee's core, that overrule anger and exposition with peace and harmony. He then gives Lee a heads up on an invitation from a former Shaolin member, Han, who aggressively opposed to the temple's principle and went rogue. He sends Lee to meet a man named Braithwaite, who specifically wants to meet Lee. Upon approaching him, the man reveals his intentions of sending Lee to Han's tournament on his private island, to which Lee's already invited. Lee's apprentice shows up for his training session, so Lee pauses the conversation with Braithwaite and gives the young student his full attention. Once he leaves, Braithwaite takes him to his headquarters, where he shows the only footage of Han and his right hand, O'Hara, Braithwaite has. He also shows O'Hara's training session to give Lee a perspective on what skills he's made up of. Now, he reveals that he's associated with a spying agency that provides information to the governments interested. Currently, he's been assigned a case in which they found a drowned girl near Han's private island, which he bought and became the king of free will. The girl's autopsy report revealed that she was drugged, which led the people to suspect that Han traffics young girls from his island. Now, he wants Lee to participate in Han's tournament, held once every 3 years, so he can spy on Han's nefarious activities and expose him. Braithwaite also shows Lee a picture of a young operative named Mei Ling and reveals about sending her over to Han's island 2 months ago. She's shown no signs of contact so far, so Braithwaite requests that Lee locate her too. Lee agrees to the mission and decides to pay a visit to his sensei before the trip. From him, he finds out that his sister fell victim to O'Hara and his bullying men on the same island. The teacher gave O'Hara a lifelong scar while protecting his sister, but they knocked him out and harassed his sister to the point where she preferred taking her own life before O'Hara's men could put their filthy hands on her. This gets personal for Lee, but he remains calm and visits his sister's grave. He gets on a canoe that takes him to Han's boat. On the same path is a man named Roper, who has escaped his debt collectors and pursued Han's tournament. The second pursuer is Williams, a martial arts teacher who beats 2 bullying policemen and steals their car to get to the port. When the men unite on Han's boat, it appears that Williams and Roper already know each other. On their journey to the island, they place friendly bets on fighting grasshoppers. A bully bothers the working staff and tries to test Lee's patience by provoking him for a fight. Lee tells him to get on the attached canoe, which they're going to row to the nearest island, where Lee can show his skills. When the bully gets on the canoe, Lee detaches the rope and hands it to the young staff, who enjoy tugging the rope and filling the canoe with water. Upon reaching the island, they're all welcomed by Han's main worker, Tanya, who leads them all the way from their training grounds to their rooms. The next day, a carnival-like festival is held to properly welcome the participants, where Han makes his great entrance along with his female students. After sending his gratitude and honoring the participants, he shows his students skills by throwing apples in random directions, which the students target with their dart. Lee grabs one of the apples, which Lee realizes is being darted by Mei Ling. At night, Tanya shows up to the contestants' room one by one and provides them with girls. Lee specifically demands for the one whose dart he carries, so Tanya brings Mei Ling to his room. He immediately starts interrogating her, but she claims that she's being strictly watched in a castle, and all she knows is that once a young girl is summoned by Han, she goes missing. O'Hara shows up to Lee's room and reminds him to wear his uniform at the tournament, but Lee shows up without one purposefully. At the tournament, Williams enjoys sparring with the bully and takes pride in defeating him. Roper shows up next, who purposefully loses the first 2 rounds from his opponents and strikes him in the 3rd one, in which he knocks him out with 1 move. After the tournament, all of the contestants are sent back to their rooms. Roper takes advantage of Tanya by getting an intense massage from her. Williams also pleases himself by all the girls he selected and decides to go out for a stroll in the moonlight. One of the girls warns him that it's forbidden to go outside their rooms, but he ignores the warning. Meanwhile, Mei Ling awaits Li in his room, who packs a rope in his tote bag and goes out on a search mission. After dodging the guards, he finds a secret hatch, to which he ties his rope and slides down using the rope. He witnesses some guys moving giant drums on a trolley. As he hangs midair, the guards spot his rope tied to the hatch. They cut it and gather around, but Li makes it back and beats all of them. Unfortunately, Williams spots him while he's running back to his room. The next day, Han stops the tournament and scrutinizes his guards for showing incompetency against the imposter and has them beaten up by a student named Bolo who uses unorthodox techniques. When the tournament begins, Li finds out that his opponent is O'Hara. Li beats him in all 3 rounds by showing fast reflexes and knocking him to the ground with 1 punch, but O'Hara becomes a sore loser and tries to pull Li's leg. Li takes a boost from it and throws a flying kick at O'Hara's face. The 2 fight once again, during which Li kills him. This casualty dismisses the tournament once again, as Han finds O'Hara's defeat a disgrace to his institute and calls off the tournament. Williams decides to join Roper in his room and tell him what he witnessed last night, but Tanya approaches him and directs him to Han's office. Williams tells Roper to wait and shows up in Han's office, where he accuses Williams of being the imposter and has his guards take him away. Williams shows great moves on the guards and fiercely defeats them all, but things go south when Han turns out to be a better fighter than him, who Williams thinks is made out of steel. Williams gets thrown in Han's private brothel, where the girls are constantly laughing as if they've been drugged. There, Han consecutively punches Williams until he dies. When he removes his glove, his hand is revealed to be steel prosthetic. When Williams doesn't show up to Roper's room, he takes his concerns to Han, who takes him on a tour of his museum and his secret lair, previously witnessed by Li, in which he introduces Roper to his personal guards, whom he refers to as his daughters, and shows Roper how he manufactures his own illegal drugs for business. Near his prison, where he's captured innocent but lost people, Han reveals to Roper the reason behind revealing so much of himself, according to which he wants to recruit Roper and have him represent his business in the United States since he knows Roper's debts are off-chart. Roper is almost convinced until he watches what Han has done to his buddy Williams. He immediately denies associating him with any of Han's activities. Simultaneously, Li comes near the hatch, which is now being guarded by a snake. He captures the snake in his tote bag and hangs himself down, from where he sneakily makes his way towards the operating room. He leaves the snake there, causing the operating men to break through the windows and run away. Once the coast is clear, he goes inside to get his hands on whatever he can, but ends up triggering the lair's alarm, hearing which the guards start gathering around him. They nearly rip his shirt off, but he smacks all of them with his unique moves and runs away from there. He rips off his shirt and moves forward, but is engaged into combat by several guards. He beats all of them without putting in any efforts or repeating a move. He's herded near the prison area, where all entrances are sealed shut, confining Li to a small cubic area, above which is a balcony, with Han watching and praising him. The next day, Roper is brought to the ground, where Han has his unorthodox guy untie Li and asks him to fight him, but when he refuses, he makes the unorthodox guy fight Roper. Meanwhile, Mei Ling frees the prisoners after seizing the right opportunity. When Roper beats down the scary guy, Han loses his temper and orders all of his students to fight Li and Roper in order to engage them. All of a sudden, a large number of men wearing black uniforms show up and start beating up the students. In this chaotic ring of fighters, Han takes off his prosthetic hand and replaces it with a board that has 3 sharp nails attached to it. Li spots Han and engages in combat with him, during which Han switches to bigger and sharper metal claws. He scratches Li multiple times, but in the end, he kills Han using one of his claws, and walks out to find rescuing choppers patrolling above the island. Here, the film ends. I hope you liked the story recap. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Thank you for being a part of Black's Movie Recaps. If these tales of mystery and intrigue sent shivers down your spine, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Black's Movie Recap for more bone-chilling narratives. Stay tuned, and until next time, stay captivated.